What if I told you that the shoes on your feet could determine whether you're treated like royalty or garbage? Sounds crazy, right? But for one 10-year-old kid standing in a fancy bank, those worn-out sneakers became the difference between respect and humiliation. And what happened next? Let me tell you, nobody in that marble lobby saw it coming. Not the arrogant manager. Not the laughing customers. Nobody. This is a story about dignity, injustice, and the moment when everything flipped upside down in the most spectacular way possible. A kid walks into one of those banks that looks more like a palace than a place to handle money. You know the type. Marble floors so shiny you can see your reflection. Chandeliers hanging from ceilings 3 stories high. The kind of place where even the air feels expensive. And there he was. Wesley. 10 years old. Skinny as a rail. Wearing a jacket 3 sizes too big that he probably got from a donation bin. And shoes? Man, those shoes had seen better days. Soles cracked like a desert road. Laces so frayed they barely held together. The kind of shoes that tell a story before you even open your mouth. He walked up to that counter with his head held high, clutching this brown envelope like it was the most precious thing in the world. And maybe it was. Inside were documents. A bank card. A letter. All the proof he needed that he belonged there just as much as anyone else. He cleared his throat. "Excuse me, sir." His voice came out small but steady. "I need to check my account balance, please." Now pause right there. Imagine you're working at that bank. A kid comes up. Polite. Asking for help. What's the normal response? You'd help him, right? Maybe smile. Treat him with basic human kindness. That's what any decent person would do. But here's where this story takes a dark turn. Because the man behind that counter? Bradley Whitmore. 15 years in banking. Expensive suit. Even more expensive watch. This man looked at Wesley and didn't see a customer. Didn't see a child. Saw something else entirely. He looked Wesley up and down. Slow. Deliberate. Like he was inspecting something that had crawled in from the street. And then he laughed. Not a chuckle. A full-throated laugh that echoed across that massive lobby. "Check your account?" His voice dripped with mockery. "This is a premium financial institution, not some charity for street kids." Every word landed like a punch. Bradley stepped closer. His cologne was probably worth more than Wesley's entire outfit. But all that expensive fragrance couldn't cover up the ugly on the inside. "Look at those shoes," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at him." He shook his head like he was performing for an audience. Just another kid looking for a handout. "You people are always the same. You people." Those 2 words hung in the air like poison. Everyone knew what he meant. The subtext wasn't even subtle. It was racism, pure and simple, wrapped up in an expensive suit and a fake smile. "Get out," Bradley continued, his voice harder now. "Get out before I have security remove you. We serve real customers here. Not whatever you are." The security guard started moving closer. His hand went to his belt. The baton hanging there suddenly felt very present. And the customers? The ones who were standing around waiting for their own transactions? They started joining in. One woman in designer, everything called out from behind. "Throw him out already. He's making the place smell bad." Can you imagine? A grown adult saying that about a child. Others laughed. Some nodded in agreement. A whole lobby full of people, and not one single person stood up for this kid. Not one. Wesley stood there, taking it all. His hands were shaking, but he didn't run. Didn't scream. Didn't fall apart. He just stood there with a dignity that most adults would struggle to maintain. "Sir," he said, his voice trembling but not breaking, "I have an account here. My grandmother opened it for me." Oh, this made Bradley laugh even harder. "Your grandmother," he repeated, looking around at his audience. "Let me guess. She also left you a yacht and a mansion, right?" The whole lobby was his stage, and he was loving every second of it. He was getting entertainment out of destroying a child. Think about that for a second. Wesley pulled out the envelope. The one his grandmother had prepared before she died. Inside were all the documents. Account papers. The bank card. A letter written in shaky handwriting because his grandmother's hands weren't what they used to be at the end. "This is real," Wesley said. "My grandma passed away 2 months ago. She left me this account. Please, I just want to check the balance. Bradley snatched the envelope out of Wesley's hands. Not gently. He ripped it open and pulled everything out like he was searching for evidence at a crime scene. He shuffled through papers with this bored, annoyed expression. Then he saw it. The bank card. Black. Sleek. The premium kind that only gets issued to people with serious money in their accounts. For just a second, something flickered across Bradley's face. Confusion, maybe. A tiny seed of doubt. But here's the thing about prejudice. It's powerful. It clouds your judgment. Makes you see what you want to see instead of what's actually there. Bradley shook off that doubt faster than you'd shake off a bug on your arm. Where did you steal this? He held up the card like he'd just discovered stolen goods. A kid like you with a premium account card? He scoffed. Do I look stupid to you? I didn't steal anything, Wesley said. His voice was getting shakier now. It's mine. My grandmother worked her whole life and saved everything for me. Your grandmother worked her whole life. Bradley said it like it was the setup to a joke. Sure she did. Let me guess what she really did. Sold drugs? Robbed banks? What's the real story here, kid? Can you feel how cruel that is? This man was taking everything Wesley's grandmother had worked for, all her sacrifice and love, and turning it into something dirty. Something criminal. All because he couldn't imagine that a black kid in old shoes could possibly have money honestly. Bradley threw the card onto the counter. It slid across the marble and almost fell off the edge. I've been doing this for 15 years, he said. I can spot a fraud from a mile away. Then he pointed to the worst corner of the lobby. Over there. Sit. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone. I'm calling headquarters to verify this ridiculous story. Wesley walked to that corner like a prisoner being led to a cell. Each step felt heavier than the last. The chair was cold metal. Uncomfortable. Positioned where everyone could see him but nobody would have to interact with him. Like he was on display. A warning to others who might dare to enter this space without the right skin color or the right clothes. He sat down and pulled out his grandmother's letter. The paper was already soft from being handled so many times. Corners starting to bend. Her handwriting filled the page. My brave Wesley, never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know. He read those words over and over, trying to make them feel true when everything around him was screaming the opposite. His phone buzzed. Text from his Uncle Lawrence. Stuck in a meeting. Be there in 20 minutes. You're doing great, champ. Wesley wanted to text back and tell him what was happening. Tell him about the laughter and the insults and the way they were treating him like he was nothing. But he didn't. He just typed back, okay? He didn't want Uncle Lawrence to worry. Didn't want to seem weak. So he just sat there. Alone. Waiting. Invisible. 20 minutes turned into 25. Then 30. The bank kept operating around him like he didn't exist. Bradley helped a white guy in a golf shirt open a new account. This guy had walked in 15 minutes after Wesley. Got served immediately. No questions. No suspicion. Just smiles and handshakes and welcome to our bank. Wesley watched the whole thing. Watched how different people got treated differently. How the color of your skin and the brand of your clothes determined whether you were welcomed or thrown out. A woman finished her transaction at the counter. Diane something. She glanced over at Wesley. For a second, her face showed something. Guilt maybe. Discomfort. She looked like she wanted to say something. Do something. Be the one person who stood up. But she didn't. She just grabbed her designer purse tighter and walked toward the exit. Her heels clicked against the marble floor. Each click felt like another person choosing silence over courage. Wesley pulled out the letter again. Read it for the 100th time. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and loved more than you know. His grandmother used to tell him that every night. She said some famous author wrote it about a bear. Winnie the Pooh. Even children's books know about courage, she'd say with this warm smile. Wesley couldn't remember the author's name, but he remembered her voice. Soft. Safe. Gone. 32 minutes had passed when Bradley finally called him over. Not to the main counter where normal people got served. To a small desk shoved in the back. Away from the nice areas. Away from the coffee and the comfortable chairs. A desk where everyone could still see him, but he was isolated. like an animal in a zoo. Wesley sat in another hard plastic chair, put his grandmother's documents on the desk carefully. Bradley didn't even look at them, didn't touch them, just stared at Wesley like he was something unpleasant that needed to be dealt with. "Let's try this again," Bradley said, his voice cold. "Clinical. You claim you have an account here. You claim your grandmother left you money. But you don't have proper ID. No parent or guardian present. No proof of address. And honestly, you don't look like someone who belongs in a place like this." Wesley's throat felt tight. "I have my school ID. And my grandma's letter. And the bank card has my name on it." Bradley picked up the school ID with 2 fingers. Like touching it might contaminate him. "Lincoln Elementary. 5th grade." He tossed it back. It slid across the desk toward Wesley. "This proves nothing. Any kid can get a school ID. Doesn't mean you have money sitting in an account here." The questions kept coming. Harder. Meaner. "Where are your parents?" The words hit Wesley like a slap. His dad left before he was born. Never met him. Never would. His mom died in a car accident when he was 3. He didn't even remember her face except from old photographs that Uncle Lawrence kept in frames around the house. "I live with my uncle," Wesley said quietly. "And where is this uncle of yours?" Bradley leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms. "Let me guess. He's super important and super busy. Too busy to come verify that his nephew has a premium bank account, right? He's in a meeting." Wesley's voice came out even smaller. "An important meeting. He's coming. An important meeting." Bradley smiled that ugly smile. "Of course he is. Let me paint you a picture, kid. You're 10 years old. You're wearing shoes that look like they came from a dumpster. You show up here with some wild story about your dead grandmother leaving you money. And your uncle, this mysterious important uncle, is conveniently absent." He paused for effect. "You know what that sounds like to me? A scam." Before Wesley could respond, Chelsea, one of the senior tellers, walked over, bent down, whispered something in Bradley's ear. They both looked at Wesley. Both smirked, like they were sharing a private joke at his expense. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing," Bradley said louder now. Loud enough for other customers to hear. "But it won't work here. I'm freezing this account pending a full investigation." Wesley's eyes went wide. "You can't do that. That's my grandma's money. She saved her whole life for me." "Your grandma?" Bradley practically spit the words. "This teacher who supposedly saved a fortune. Tell me something, kid. What did she really do? How does a teacher end up with enough money to get a premium account? Maybe she had a side business we should know about." The implication was clear. Crystal clear. He was suggesting Wesley's grandmother was a criminal. This woman who had dedicated 40 years to teaching children. Who rode the bus in the rain. Who wore the same winter coat until it fell apart. This man was dragging her memory through the mud, and there was nothing Wesley could do to stop it. Something cracked inside Wesley's chest. In the place where he kept his grandmother's memory sacred and safe. Tears built up behind his eyes. He tried to stop them. Boys don't cry. Someone had told him that once. But then he heard his grandmother's voice in his head. "Boys feel, Wesley. Feeling isn't weakness. It's strength. My grandma worked 40 years, he managed to say through the tears. She was a teacher at Lincoln Elementary. She saved everything she could for me because she loved me. She promised me this money would help me go to college someday. She promised." "Spare me the sob story," Bradley interrupted. "I've heard them all. Every single con artist has a dead grandmother and a tragic backstory. It's like you people all read from the same script." "You people." There it was again. Those poison words. Bradley stood up, straightened his tie, made sure everyone was watching. Then he raised his voice like an actor on a stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. This is what we deal with every day. People who don't belong trying to take what isn't theirs. Trying to game the system. Trying to steal from hardworking customers who actually earned their money." The lobby was silent. Everyone watching. Some customers nodded. Their own prejudices confirmed. Others looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Not one person spoke up. Not one. Bradley turned to the security guard. Jerome. A black man in his 50s standing by the entrance. "Jerome, escort this kid out." No. Jerome didn't move. His feet felt nailed to the floor. For 11 years he'd worked this job. 11 years of watching Bradley and people like him humiliate customers who didn't fit their image of successful. Immigrants who struggled with English. Elderly people confused by new technology. Poor people in second-hand clothes. Anyone who seemed vulnerable. Jerome had seen it all. And he'd never said a word. Not once. The mortgage. The kids in college. The pension. Silence meant survival. Speaking up meant risk. "Jerome." Bradley's voice got sharp. "I said no." Jerome walked toward Wesley. Each step felt like betraying every value he claimed to have. He stopped in front of the boy. Extended his hand. Couldn't look him in the eyes. Couldn't face his own cowardice. Wesley stood up on his own. Picked up his grandmother's letter. Held it against his chest like armor. Started walking toward the exit with his head up. Shoulders back. Maintaining dignity when the whole world was trying to strip it away. Bradley's voice followed him like a curse. "Next time you need money, try a homeless shelter. That's more appropriate for someone like you." Someone in the lobby laughed. Actually laughed. Out loud. At a crying child being thrown out of a bank. Wesley reached the doors. His phone started ringing. Uncle Lawrence calling. He tried to answer, but his hands were shaking too badly. The phone slipped. Crashed onto the marble. The screen cracked into a spiderweb of broken glass. Jerome picked it up. Handed it back. For 1 second their eyes met. Wesley saw something he didn't expect. Shame. Deep. Soul-crushing. Overwhelming shame. But shame without action is just guilt. And guilt doesn't help anyone. The automatic doors closed behind Wesley with a soft sound. Inside, Bradley adjusted his tie. Smiled at Chelsea. "And that's how you handle it," he said, satisfaction dripping from every word. "Give these people an inch and they'll take everything." Chelsea nodded, but her smile had disappeared. Something uncomfortable was churning in her stomach. A feeling she couldn't quite name but couldn't quite ignore. Bradley's phone buzzed. Email notification. Something about an important investor visit. He glanced at it. Deleted it without reading. Too busy. Too confident. Too convinced of his own power. He should have read that email. He really should have. Because everything was about to change. Outside, November wind cut through Wesley's thin jacket like knives. He sat on a stone bench in the parking lot. Drew his knees up to his chest. Made himself as small as possible. The brown envelope sat beside him. The cracked phone in his lap. The letter clutched in his hand, getting more wrinkled by the second. He looked at his shoes. The ones Bradley mocked. The ones the whole lobby laughed at. His grandmother had bought them at a thrift store last spring. $2. Wesley remembered being embarrassed when she brought them home. Other kids at school had expensive sneakers. Name brands. The cool kinds. "Shoes don't make the person, baby," she'd said, kneeling down to tie them for him. "Character does. And you've got more character in your little finger than most people have in their whole bodies." Now he understood. Every dollar she didn't spend on herself was a dollar saved for him. Every sacrifice. Every worn-out coat. Every bus ride in the rain. All of it was love in action. And he'd just been told it was all a lie. All a scam. All worthless. Tears fell onto the cracked phone screen. He didn't bother wiping them away. Just let them fall. He tried calling Uncle Lawrence again. Straight to voicemail. The meeting must still be going. Uncle Lawrence always silenced his phone during important meetings. Said it was professional courtesy. Wesley had nobody to call. Nobody to help. Nobody coming to save him. He was completely alone. A woman walked by. Business suit. Designer bag. Perfect makeup. She saw the crying black kid on the bench. The one who'd just been thrown out. She'd watched the whole thing through the window. She kept walking. A man jogged past with a golden retriever. The dog wanted to stop and sniff Wesley. Check on him the way dogs do. The man yanked the leash. Hurried away. Cars pulled in and out of the parking lot. People entered the bank. People left the bank. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked if he was okay. Wesley was invisible again. Just like inside. Just like always. He unfolded his grandmother's letter one more time. The paper was damp now. spotted with tears. My brave Wesley, the world will sometimes be cruel. People will judge you by your shoes, your clothes, the color of your skin. They will try to make you feel worthless. But you are not worthless. You are my greatest treasure. Wesley read those words through blurred vision. Tried to believe them. Tried to feel the love behind them. But all he could hear was Bradley's voice. All he could see was that lobby full of people laughing at him. All he could feel was the weight of humiliation pressing down on his chest. Then he heard it. A car door closing. Footsteps on pavement. Getting closer. He didn't look up. Didn't care. Probably just another person walking past his pain. Hey, champ. The voice was warm. Familiar. Safe. Wesley looked up. Uncle Lawrence stood there. Tall. Distinguished. Silver at the temples. Wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. But none of that mattered. What mattered was the look in his eyes. Concern. Love. Fury barely contained beneath the surface. Uncle Lawrence, Wesley whispered. Then he couldn't hold it together anymore. He threw himself into his uncle's arms and sobbed. Completely broke down. All the pain and humiliation and fear came pouring out. Lawrence held him tight. Didn't rush him. Didn't ask questions. Just let his nephew cry until the shaking stopped. When Wesley finally pulled back, Lawrence knelt down to his eye level. Tell me what happened. Tell me everything. And Wesley did. Every word. Every insult. Every laugh. Every moment of cruelty. Lawrence listened in complete silence. His face stayed calm, but his eyes got darker. Harder. Colder. Like ice forming over deep water. When Wesley finished, Lawrence stood up slowly. You did nothing wrong, he said. His voice was firm as stone. Nothing. Do you understand me? This is not your fault. None of it. But they said I was lying. Wesley's voice cracked. They said Grandma was a criminal. And they're about to learn exactly how wrong they were. Lawrence took Wesley's hand. Started walking toward the bank entrance. Wesley pulled back. I don't want to go back in there. Please. Please don't make me. Lawrence knelt down again. I know it's scary, champ. I know. But sometimes we have to face the people who hurt us. Not to fight them. Not to yell. But to show them they couldn't break us. To show them we're still standing. That they have no power over us. Wesley looked at those glass doors. At the marble lobby beyond. At the place where he'd been destroyed. He thought about his grandmother. What would she want him to do? Dignity is not given, she'd written. It is carried. Carry yours with pride. Okay, Wesley whispered. I'll go. Another car pulled into the parking lot. Expensive. Sleek. A woman stepped out. Professional. Elegant. Carrying herself with authority. Patricia Edwards. Regional director for the whole bank network. She'd been driving to a quarterly investor meeting when her phone rang. Lawrence Brooks on the line. He'd explained what happened in 60 seconds. Calm. Factual. Devastating. She'd changed course immediately. Driven straight here. Because Lawrence Brooks wasn't just any customer. He was the CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings. The bank's largest institutional investor. The man who owned 34% of the parent company. The man who could make or break careers with a single conversation. Patricia approached Lawrence. Nodded respectfully. Mr. Brooks. I cannot express how sorry I am. This is completely unacceptable. We'll discuss what's acceptable inside, Lawrence said quietly. My nephew deserves an apology. And I want to see exactly who we're dealing with. They walked toward the entrance together. Lawrence. Patricia. Wesley. The boy's heart pounded so hard he could feel it in his throat. His legs felt weak. The last time he walked through those doors, he was trash being thrown out. Now he was walking back in, flanked by power. By justice. By reckoning. The automatic doors slid open. The lobby fell silent, like someone had pressed a mute button. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. You could have heard a pin drop on that marble floor. Bradley Whitmore saw Patricia Edwards first. His face went white. Completely drained of color. Regional director. Unannounced visit. This was bad. Very bad. He hurried over, adjusting his tie, forcing his biggest smile. "Ms. Edwards, what a wonderful surprise." His voice came out too loud. Too eager. "We weren't expecting you until the scheduled meeting next week." "Plans changed," Patricia said. Her voice could have frozen boiling water. Then Bradley noticed the man beside her. Tall. Distinguished. The kind of suit that screamed money and power. And he was holding hands with. Bradley's stomach dropped like an elevator with cut cables. The black kid. The one he'd just humiliated. The one he'd called a thief and a liar and thrown out like garbage. That kid was back. And he was holding hands with someone who clearly mattered. A lot. "I'd like to introduce someone," Patricia said. Her voice carried across the silent lobby. "This is Lawrence Brooks, founder and CEO of Meridian Capital Holdings." The name hit Bradley like a physical punch to the gut. Meridian Capital Holdings. The bank's largest investor. The company that owned 34% of the parent corporation. The man who could destroy careers with a phone call. That man was standing right there, holding hands with the kid Bradley had destroyed. "I believe you've already met my nephew," Lawrence said quietly. Bradley's face cycled through emotions like a broken slot machine. Confusion. Recognition. Horror. Terror. Complete and utter panic. Words tried to form in his mouth, but nothing came out except stammering nonsense. I didn't. If I had known who he was, I never would have." "That's exactly the problem," Lawrence said, each word carefully measured. "You didn't know who he was. So you decided he was nobody. You saw a black kid in old shoes and made a judgment. Not about policies. Not about procedures. About who deserves basic human dignity." The lobby was so quiet you could hear people breathing. Chelsea dropped her pen. It clattered on the marble like a gunshot. Jerome stood by the entrance, feeling something crack inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 11 years starting to thaw. That woman, Diane, pressed both hands over her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. Every single person in that lobby was watching. The customers who had left. The employees who had enabled the cruelty. The bystanders who had stayed silent. All of them witnesses now to justice finally showing up. Lawrence released Wesley's hand. Walked toward Bradley slowly. Each step deliberate. The walk of someone who knew his power and didn't need to rush. Didn't need to shout. Didn't need to perform. Power that comes from knowing you're right. Bradley stepped backward. His back hit the marble counter. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. "Mr. Whitmore." Lawrence's voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. "My nephew came here today to check his account balance. His grandmother, my mother, left him that money. It's legally his. Every penny. Can you explain why he was denied service?" Bradley's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. There were irregularities. "We were following standard protocol for suspicious." "What irregularities?" Lawrence remained calm. Controlled. Somehow that made it more terrifying than if he'd been screaming. "The account is properly documented. The funds have been verified by your own institution." What specific irregularity justified treating a 10-year-old child like a criminal? "I didn't realize if I had known who he was I would never." "That's exactly the problem," Lawrence said again, stepping closer. "You didn't know who he was, so you decided he was nobody. You saw a black kid in worn-out shoes and you made a judgment. Not about regulations. Not about security. About who matters and who doesn't." The words hung in the air like an indictment. Bradley had no response. No defense. Because Lawrence was absolutely right and everyone knew it. "You didn't know who he was," Lawrence continued, his voice quiet but cutting through the silence like a blade. "So you decided he was worthless. You saw the color of his skin and the condition of his shoes, and you made a choice. That choice revealed everything about your character. Nothing about his." Lawrence paused. Let the words sink in. "My mother worked 40 years as an elementary school teacher. She rode the bus until she was 70 because she refused to waste money on a car payment. She wore the same winter coat for 15 years. She bought store-brand groceries so she could save every extra dollar. And do you know why?" Bradley said nothing. There was nothing to say. So her grandson could have a future. So Wesley could go to college. So he'd have opportunities she never had. Lawrence's voice didn't waver. "If my mother had walked in here today wearing that old coat, carrying her worn purse, you would have treated her exactly the same way. Laughed at her. Humiliated her. Thrown her out. Because in your world, poverty is a crime and being black makes you automatically suspicious. The silence in that lobby was deafening. People shifted uncomfortably. Some looked at the floor. Others stared at Bradley with growing disgust. The truth was out now. Undeniable. Unavoidable. She deserved better, Lawrence said. Just like Wesley. Just like every single person who walks through those doors, regardless of what they're wearing or what they look like. He turned to Patricia. Before we discuss consequences, I want Mr. Whitmore to see something. Patricia nodded. Lawrence walked to the main counter. Wesley followed, still holding his hand. Chelsea stood behind her computer, frozen like a statue. Her face had gone pale. Pull up my nephew's account, Lawrence said. It wasn't a request. Chelsea looked at Patricia. Patricia nodded once. Chelsea's trembling fingers typed on the keyboard. The screen loaded. Everyone held their breath. And there it was. Account balance. $487,263. Almost $500,000. 40 years of a teacher's salary. Every birthday card with money tucked inside. Every Christmas bonus saved. Every summer tutoring session. Every single sacrifice Eleanor Brooks had made. All sitting there in black and white on that screen. Bradley stared at the number. His face went from white to gray to green. His mouth fell open. No sound came out. Complete shock. The silence stretched. Then Lawrence spoke. He laughed at your shoes, he said quietly. His voice carried to every corner of that lobby. He stopped laughing when he saw the balance. The number glowed on the screen like an accusation. $487,263. Proof that everything Bradley assumed was wrong. Proof that his prejudice had blinded him to reality. That, Lawrence said, pointing at the screen, is what my mother saved over 4 decades. She rode buses in the rain, so Wesley could go to college someday. She wore second-hand clothes, so Wesley could have a future. She ate cheap food, so Wesley would never go hungry. Every dollar you see there represents a sacrifice. A choice to give instead of take. He paused. Let the weight of it settle on Bradley's shoulders. And you almost took that away from him because of his shoes. Because of his skin color. Because in your world, people who look like Wesley don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. Bradley finally found his voice. It came out cracked. Desperate. I didn't know. If I had known there was that much money I would have. And that's the real problem, Lawrence interrupted. You would have treated him differently if you knew he had money. Your respect has a price tag. But human dignity doesn't. It should never have mattered whether there was $100 in that account or $1 million. He's a customer. More than that, he's a child. He deserved basic kindness regardless of his bank balance. Lawrence looked at the number one more time. Then at Wesley. My mother used to tell me something, he said. A person who treats the janitor differently than the CEO has no character at all. Today you showed your character, Mr. Whitmore. Everyone saw it. Bradley had nothing to say. No defense. No excuse. Because Lawrence was absolutely right and the truth of it was crushing him. Patricia Edwards stepped forward. Her heels clicked against the marble like a countdown to judgment. Bradley. My office. No. Bradley didn't move. Couldn't move. His legs had turned to concrete. Bradley. Patricia's voice got harder. No. He blinked. Looked at Patricia. Then at Lawrence. Then at Wesley. The boy he'd mocked. The boy whose grandmother trusted him with everything she'd ever earned. Bradley's career flashed before his eyes. 15 years of climbing the corporate ladder. The corner office. The company car. The bonus checks. All of it crumbling like a sandcastle hit by a wave. I can explain, he whispered. You'll have that opportunity, Patricia said. Her voice was ice wrapped in iron. In private. No. She turned and walked toward the back offices. Bradley followed on legs that barely worked. Lawrence watched them go. Then he knelt beside Wesley. You okay, champ? Wesley nodded slowly. His eyes were still fixed on that screen. Grandma saved all that for me. Every single penny. Lawrence's voice was soft. She started the account the day you were born. Added to it every month for 10 years. Never missed once, even when times were hard. Even when money was tight. She always put you first. But she never had nice things. Wesley's voice was small. Her apartment was so small. Her coat was so old. Because she was giving everything to you, Lauren said. That's what love looks like sometimes. Sacrifice. Putting someone else's future ahead of your own comfort. She chose you over everything else. Wesley thought about all the times his grandmother said no to things for herself. The winter coat with the broken zipper. The old television that took forever to warm up. The reading glasses held together with tape. She could have had so much more. Instead, she gave it all to him. I'm going to make her proud, Wesley whispered. I promise. You already have, champ. Lawrence squeezed his shoulder. You already have. Inside Bradley's office, the temperature felt 20 degrees colder. Patricia sat in Bradley's chair, behind his desk. A deliberate choice that communicated exactly who had the power now. Lawrence stood by the window, arms crossed. A silent witness. Bradley sat in the visitor's chair. The cheap one. The one where desperate customers sat when they came begging for loans. The reversal was complete. I've already reviewed the security footage, Patricia said. She turned her laptop around. Press play. Bradley watched himself laugh at Wesley. Call him a beggar. Threaten to call security. Announce to the entire lobby that black kids don't belong in real banks. His own voice. His own words. His own cruelty recorded forever in high definition. You violated 3 company policies, Patricia said. Her voice was clinical. Methodical. Like a surgeon identifying disease tissue. Discrimination based on race and appearance. Denial of service without legitimate cause. And falsification of official records. Bradley's head jerked up. Falsification? Patricia pulled up a document. You filed an incident report 23 minutes ago. It states that Wesley Brooks was aggressive, threatening, and refused to provide proper identification when asked. She looked at him with cold eyes. The security footage shows a polite 10-year-old boy asking to check his account. It shows you laughing at him, insulting his race, and having him physically removed from the premises. Which version is true, Bradley? I was protecting the bank's interests. His voice came out weak. Unconvincing even to himself. You were protecting your prejudices, Patricia said. There's a significant difference. She stood. Walked around the desk. Stood over Bradley like a judge about to deliver a sentence. Effective immediately, you are suspended without pay. Your quarterly bonus, all $35,000 of it, is forfeit. A full investigation begins tomorrow morning. When it confirms discriminatory intent, and based on this footage it absolutely will, termination for cause will follow. Bradley's face crumbled. 15 years. I gave this bank 15 years. And in 15 years you should have learned that every customer deserves basic respect regardless of their appearance or bank balance. Patricia opened the door. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. Your access credentials have already been revoked. Bradley stood. His legs barely supported him. He looked at Lawrence one last time. Searching for mercy. Finding none. If he wasn't your nephew. Bradley's voice came out as a plea. If he wasn't your nephew, you wouldn't care this much. You're right, Lawrence said quietly. His voice was devastating in its honesty. If he wasn't my nephew, he would have walked out with nothing. Filed a complaint that would have been ignored. Maybe called a lawyer who would have told him it wasn't worth pursuing. That's exactly the problem, Mr. Whitmore. He shouldn't need me to be treated like a human being. No one should. The fact that my intervention was necessary proves how broken this system is. Bradley had no response. No argument. He walked out of his own office for the last time, past his own employees, through his own lobby, carrying a box of personal items like a fired employee in a movie, because that's exactly what he was now. Chelsea Morrison was next. Same meeting room. Same chairs. Different weight of consequences. She sat there knowing she was complicit. Knowing she'd participated in humiliating a child. You didn't start this, Patricia said. But you participated in it. You reinforced Mr. Whitmore's behavior. You failed to intervene when a child was being abused right in front of you. Chelsea's mascara ran down her cheeks in black rivers. I knew it was wrong, she said through tears. I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to be the one who caused problems. Silence is not neutral, Ms. Morrison. Patricia's voice was firm but not cruel. Silence is a choice. And that choice has consequences. The disciplinary measures were outlined. Formal reprimand. Mandatory training. Permanent note in her file. Zero tolerance for any future incidents. Chelsea nodded through her tears. Accepted everything. She'd learned something today, even though the lesson came at the cost of her dignity. Jerome Davis stood by the entrance after his conversation with Lawrence. Not a formal meeting. Just two men talking honestly about failure and redemption. You picked up his phone when he dropped it, Lawrence said. You handed it back to him. It wasn't enough. Jerome's voice was heavy with regret. I should have done more. No, it wasn't enough, Lawrence agreed. He didn't soften the truth. But it was something. A small kindness in a moment when Wesley had none. I should have spoken up. Jerome's hands clenched into fists. I should have told Bradley he was wrong. Should have defended that boy. Should have. The word tasted like ash. Yes, you should have. Lawrence looked at him steadily. The question is, what will you do next time? Jerome thought about his mortgage. His kids in college. His pension. All the reasons he'd stayed silent for 11 years. Then he thought about Wesley. 10 years old. Crying on a bench. Completely alone. Next time I speak up, he said. His voice was firm. Committed. No matter what. Lawrence extended his hand. Jerome shook it. It wasn't absolution. Wasn't forgiveness. Just a promise. A commitment to do better. To be better. To use his position to protect instead of enable. Diane Campbell had been waiting through all the meetings. All the drama. All the reckoning. She was still there when Wesley and Lawrence walked toward the exit. She stepped forward. Wait. Her voice cracked. Please. They stopped. Diane approached slowly. Her eyes were red from crying. Her hands shook. I'm so sorry, she said. The words tumbled out in a rush. I was there. I saw everything. I should have said something. Should have defended you. But I just stood there like a coward. Wesley looked at her. This woman who'd watched his humiliation in silence. He thought about what his grandmother would say. Forgiveness isn't about them, baby. It's about setting yourself free. You came back, Wesley said quietly. That matters. Diane's tears fell faster. I'm filing a complaint. A formal one. As a witness. Everything I saw. Everything they said. It goes on record. Lawrence nodded. That takes courage. It takes less courage than your nephew showed today. Diane looked at Wesley. He stood there and endured everything they threw at him. Didn't run. Didn't scream. Just maintained his dignity through all of it. I don't know if I could have done that. Wesley didn't know what to say. So he said the only thing that felt true. Thank you for coming back. Diane nodded. Wiped her eyes. Walked to customer service to file her complaint. One small act of courage. Better late than never. The news spread through the bank like wildfire. By closing time, everyone knew what happened. Bradley Whitmore, 15-year veteran, fired for cause. The official reason, violation of company policies regarding customer service and professional conduct. The real reason spread through whispers. He humiliated a black kid, called him a thief, threw him out. Turned out the kid's uncle owns a third of the bank. By the next morning, it was regional news. By the following week, national news. Not all the details. Those were kept private to protect Wesley. But the story got out. Bank manager terminated for discriminating against a child. Major investor intervened. Corporate accountability achieved. People talked about it. Argued about it. Shared their own stories of discrimination. It became a moment. A conversation. A mirror held up to society's ugly face. Bradley Whitmore's termination was finalized within 72 hours. No severance package. No recommendation letter. No pension benefits beyond what was legally required. 15 years of work. Gone in 15 minutes. He applied to other banks. Word had spread. No one would hire him. He ended up managing a check-cashing store in a strip mall 3 towns over. Helping the same kinds of people he used to mock. Some called it karma. Others called it justice. Bradley didn't call it anything. He didn't have the words. Chelsea Morrison kept her job barely. She completed every training module. Showed up early. Stayed late. Never smirked at another customer again. 6 months later, she transferred to a different branch. Needed a fresh start. 6 months after that, she quit banking entirely. Went back to school. Became a social worker. Started helping families navigate systems designed to exclude them. The same systems she'd once enforced without question. The irony wasn't lost on her. Neither was the lesson. 3 weeks after the incident, Jerome Davis faced his first real test. A young Hispanic woman came into the bank. Nervous. Uncertain. Her English wasn't perfect and she struggled to explain what she needed. A new teller, young and impatient, was getting visibly frustrated. His sighs were getting louder. His eye rolls more obvious. His condescension more apparent. Jerome walked over. "Is there a problem here?" The teller started to explain. Jerome cut him off. "This woman is a customer. She deserves patience and respect. Help her properly or I'll find someone who can." The teller's eyes went wide. He apologized immediately. Started helping the woman with genuine care and attention. Jerome went back to his post. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. But he'd spoken up. For the first time in 11 years of working security, he'd actually used his position to protect someone instead of enabling their mistreatment. And it felt like breathing after being underwater for too long. Patricia Edwards didn't stop with Bradley's termination. Within 3 months, she implemented sweeping changes across the entire region. Mandatory bias training for every employee. Every quarter. No exceptions. New customer service protocols. Every inquiry handled within 15 minutes regardless of appearance. Mystery shoppers hard to test compliance. An anonymous reporting hotline for customers and staff. Zero tolerance policies for discrimination. A small plaque mounted at every entrance. Every customer deserves respect. Simple words. Profound commitment. It wasn't revolutionary. It wouldn't fix centuries of systemic racism overnight. But it was a start. A real one. A commitment backed by action instead of empty promises. Patricia made one more change. A personal one. She called Lawrence directly. "I want to do more than just discipline bad behavior," she said. "I want to honor your mother's legacy." What would that look like? Lawrence thought about it. Talked to Wesley. Talked to his memories of Eleanor. A week later they announced it. The Eleanor Brooks Memorial Scholarship. Named after Wesley's grandmother. Funded by the bank. Administered by a community foundation. Every year, 2 scholarships would be awarded. Full tuition. Books. Living expenses. For students from underserved communities pursuing degrees in education. Teachers teaching future teachers. Eleanor Brooks's legacy multiplied exponentially. The first recipients would be announced the following fall. The selection committee would include community leaders, educators, and one very special advisor. Wesley Brooks. 10 years old. Already changing the world. When Lawrence told him about the scholarship, Wesley was quiet for a long time. They named it after Grandma. They did. So her dream keeps living. Even though she's gone. So she keeps helping kids forever. That's what she would have wanted. Wesley looked at the framed photo on his dresser. His grandmother smiling. Wearing her old coat. Her old shoes. Her beautiful spirit shining through. She would have cried, he said softly. Happy tears. Yeah. Lawrence's voice was thick with emotion. She would have. Wesley walked to his closet. Pulled out his worn-out sneakers. The ones Bradley mocked. The ones everyone laughed at. He placed them on his shelf right next to the photo. He would never throw them away. They were more valuable than any expensive shoes could ever be. They represented his grandmother's love. Her sacrifice. Her legacy. 8 years passed. Wesley Brooks walked across a sun-drenched campus. Georgetown University. First day of freshman orientation. 18 years old now. Tall. Confident. A far cry from the frightened 10-year-old in that marble lobby, but not entirely different. He still carried his grandmother's letter, laminated now to protect it, tucked in his wallet close to his heart. And on the shelf in his dorm room sat those worn-out sneakers, cracked soles, frayed laces, faded from years of careful display. His roommate noticed them immediately. Bro, are those your shoes? They're completely destroyed. Wesley smiled. They're the most valuable thing I own. Valuable? They look like they belong in a trash can. Wesley picked them up gently, ran his thumb over the cracked leather. My grandmother bought these for me when I was 10. $2 from a thrift store. She apologized because she couldn't afford better. He set them back carefully on the shelf. She saved almost $500,000 for my education. Wore the same coat for 15 years. Took the bus in the rain. Ate cheap food so I could have a future. He looked at his roommate. These shoes remind me that love isn't about what you have. It's about what you give. His roommate was quiet for a long moment. That's actually really beautiful, man. Yeah. Wesley touched the shoes one more time. She was really beautiful. Lawrence Brooks continued running Meridian Capital, but he made changes too. Started a mentorship program for young people from underserved communities. Paid internships. Real opportunities. Actual career paths. Not charity. Investment. Talent is distributed equally, he told his board. Opportunity isn't. We can change that. The Eleanor Brooks Memorial Scholarship flourished. 14 recipients in 8 years. Teachers, counselors, principals, all carrying Eleanor's legacy forward. All teaching future generations. The ripple effect of one teacher's sacrifice continuing to spread. Jerome Davis retired from the bank 3 years after the incident. But he didn't disappear. He became a school resource officer. Different kind of security. Protecting kids instead of removing them. Every time he stood up for a student, he thought of Wesley. Every time he spoke against injustice, he honored the promise he'd made. He never stayed silent again. Not once. That was his redemption. Diane Campbell joined the bank's community advisory board. The woman who'd watched in silence became a voice for change. She volunteered at schools. Spoke to students about courage. About speaking up. About the cost of silence. I was a bystander once, she told them. I chose to stay quiet. It's a choice I regret every single day. Don't make my mistake. Be braver than I was. Chelsea Morrison found her redemption in social work. Spent her days helping families like the ones she used to dismiss. She never forgot Wesley. Never forgot how close she'd come to being exactly like Bradley. She was different now. Not perfect, but genuinely different. That had to count for something. Bradley Whitmore? Nobody really knew what happened to him. Some said he moved to another state. Started over. Changed his name. Some said he never recovered from the humiliation. Drank himself into obscurity. Some said he finally understood what he'd done. Spent his days volunteering at shelters, trying to make amends for his past. Nobody knew for sure. Maybe that was its own kind of justice. Being forgotten after spending so much effort making others feel invisible. Wesley stood at his dorm window as the sun set over Georgetown. Tomorrow classes would start. His future would officially begin. He pulled out his grandmother's letter. Read it one more time. Words he knew by heart but needed to see anyway. My brave Wesley, never let anyone make you feel small. You are worth more than they will ever know. Dignity is not given. It is carried. Carry yours with pride. He'd carried it through the worst day of his young life. Through years of growing up without her. Through the journey that brought him here to this moment. Standing on the edge of everything she'd dreamed for him. His phone buzzed. Uncle Lawrence. First day tomorrow. How are you feeling, champ? Nervous. Excited. Ready. Your grandma would be so proud of you. You know that, right? I know. Wesley looked at the worn-out shoes on his shelf. I think about her every day. Try to make choices she'd approve of. She's with you, Wesley. Always will be. They talked for a few more minutes. Then Wesley hung up. He had orientation to attend. A future to build. A legacy to honor. He grabbed his backpack. Brand new. Expensive. A gift from Uncle Lawrence. But on his feet were different shoes. The old sneakers. The ones he'd brought to campus specifically for moments like this. Today felt like a special occasion. The beginning of everything. The fulfillment of his grandmother's dream. Wesley Brooks walked out of his dorm room into his future, carrying his dignity with pride. Just like Grandma Eleanor taught him. Just like she'd always known he would. Here's the truth that too many people forget. Respect isn't a reward you give to successful people. It's not earned by having money or wearing expensive clothes or knowing the right people. Respect is the baseline of humanity. The absolute minimum we owe each other simply because we're all human beings trying to survive in this complicated world. Wesley Brooks didn't need a powerful uncle to deserve basic decency. Nobody does. But that day in the bank revealed something important. Some people measure your worth by your shoes. Others measure it by your wallet. A precious few measure it by your character. Be one of the precious few. Be someone who treats every person with dignity regardless of their appearance or their bank account or the color of their skin. And if you ever find yourself in a lobby or a store or anywhere watching someone being humiliated for being different or poor or vulnerable, ask yourself one question. Which person do you want to be? The one who laughed? The one who filmed it for entertainment? The one who stayed silent and let it happen? Or the one who spoke up? The one who stood between cruelty and its victim? The choice is yours. It's always yours. Dignity is not given by others. It's carried within yourself. Carry yours with pride. And more importantly, help others carry theirs. Defend the defenseless. Speak up for the silent. Stand with the vulnerable. That's how we change the world. Not with grand gestures or sweeping legislation, though those matter too. We change the world through countless small acts of courage. One moment at a time. One person at a time. One choice at a time. So the next time you see someone in worn-out shoes, remember Wesley. Remember Eleanor. Remember that you have no idea what sacrifices brought them to that moment. What struggles they've endured. What love they carry. Treat them with the dignity they deserve. Not because of who they know or what they have, but because they're human. And that's enough. That should always be enough. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it changed even slightly how you see the world, then share it. Talk about it. Let it spark conversations about dignity and respect and the casual cruelty we sometimes allow to happen in our presence. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves basic kindness. Subscribe if you want more stories that matter. Stories that challenge us to be better, to do better, to see each other more clearly. Because at the end of the day, we all have a choice. We can be Bradley Whitmore, measuring worth by appearance and wielding power to exclude. Or we can be Eleanor Brooks, sacrificing everything to lift someone else up. We can be the silent bystanders who let injustice happen. Or we can be the voices who speak up even when it's uncomfortable. The choice is ours. Every single day. In every interaction. With every person we meet. Choose dignity. Choose courage. Choose love. That's Eleanor's legacy. That's Wesley's lesson. That's the world we can build together if we're brave enough to try.